Welcome friends to another rSlash malicious compliance video. Today we've got some great compliance stories, and our first story of the day is from Dead Procrastinator. You want me to wear this shirt? Again? You got it, boss. So this post follows on from a previous post from a year back regarding a hideous shirt we had to wear to work. Socially and politically, our work environment is a mean girls club. I work at a secondary education institution on the support team. For stupid reasons, a hideous shirt that one of the support staff was wearing one day became our mandatory Monday shirt. Cue this week, it's photo week. We're taking group photos of all the staff, learners, and various teams and committees. These are all going in the annual magazine, which is quite a big deal. All the staff were informed that they could wear whatever they wished, as long as it lined up with the color palette of the magazine. This was shared with everyone. They actually chose really pretty shades of pink, peach, mauve, and sky blue. The support team was really happy we could skip the ghastly shirt until we couldn't. Last week, Thursday, it was communicated to us that we would wear the monstrosity. Of the whole institution, our group would be the only one that looked like crap. The next day, Friday, I was at the hairdresser and inspiration struck. I already have a short pixie cut that I color ultraviolet, basically very dark brown with a purple sheen. I revealed my plans to my stylist, and she loved it. After my haircut, I went shopping. Now, one of the things touted as an advantage of the ugly shirt was the array of colors it contained and how versatile it is, as you can wear it with so many colors. I just don't think you were meant to wear all the colors together at once. Now, in my previous post, I ruined the photo when the sleeveless shirt unexpectedly revealed the tattoos on my left arm and shoulder. So I knew this year they would strategically place me with my right side facing forward. I know how they compose and space these photos by now, I've been here too long. So imagine their surprise when I pitch up with an asymmetrical pixie cut. Long bangs sweeping to the left, regular sideburns to the left, and the right side shaved in a buzz cut, all colored bright purple. Seriously, when I'm facing that way, I look different. So they tried to subtly hide me in the middle, at the back, slightly behind the person to the left, to hide those pesky tattoos, because if I'm facing forward, I look sufficiently professional. But I'm wearing killer platform heels, something I haven't done in 10 years. Which makes me almost a hand taller than everyone else. I politely declined the request to take my shoes off, so I have to sit in the front. Now you can see my formal dress pants in bottle green, as well as my undershirt in vibrant teal, my killer heels in pale sparkly gold, and my wide salmon pink belt. Now, I didn't waste any money on these items. Wearing any of them alone or in different combinations looked fine, so I'll be using them all. No matter what they tried, they could not find a way to make the group look coherently polished and professional. Because one way they had a tatted up admin, if they photoshopped those out, I would complain politely but firmly. The other way, they had an angry emo boy. One way the height was off, and the other way, they had someone in an ensemble so garish it offended the senses. The afternoon, a while after work, we were informed that the group photo would be redone for the support team. We were kindly requested to wear the colors as indicated in the color palette tomorrow. In the group WhatsApp, I commented, "Duly noted," and received a ton of PMs joking about it. On the brighter side, I've received a ton of compliments on the hairstyle. Something so daring in a sane environment, I never would have tried it. I've colored it back to dark ultraviolet. Box color takes 20 minutes, which complements my light pink dress nicely, and the wide salmon pink belt rounds it off well. Maybe I'm wrong, but wouldn't it be more awesome if a place like this embraced the weirdness? Like if somebody did stand out or looked starkly different, or maybe everybody wore something a little, I guess you would say, garish. Just imagine how cool this place would be if OP showed up in the most ridiculous pose, in the most ridiculous clothes, and they were like, you know what, we'll pose you right there, everything will be on display, and we'll roll with it. Like just straight up embrace their workers like that. Shouldn't they just do that? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Our next story is from Doughy Balls. You think 72 degrees is too hot and the AC is broken? Better get used to it now. I work on HVAC controls and building automation. I was called over to a lab building to look at something that somebody didn't know how it worked, so they naturally assumed it was a controls problem. As I stood in the hallway and explained to the building manager what the real issue is, a professor stepped out of his office and asks if we're the maintenance guys. His lab is too hot. The building manager politely gestured for me to assist the professor since I'm responsible for the HVAC. This is pretty annoying for me because I'm supposed to work off of tickets assigned by my dispatcher rather than just doing random jobs for people that pull me aside. I don't want to be rude, so I put a smile on my face and walk into this hot lab. He shows me the thermostat, which is displaying 72 degrees, the normal set point across campus. 72 is the hard limit we set in all offices and labs to conserve energy. A lot of people try to come up with reasons to get it lowered, like their doctor told them they need it lowered for health reasons, or they strain muscles easily and other weird stuff that ultimately never works in the long run. I tell this guy that I can't change the set point lower than 72 due to the standard set by the campus. He then takes me to his other lab, which he says is working normally. He takes me to the adjacent lab next door, which is connected to this one through a set of double doors. This adjacent lab was cold, 65 degrees. He shows me the thermostat. It reads 65. I show him the set point is actually 72. I tell him that it's cold because there's a problem with the system and I now need to fix it. He looks at me like he just realized his whole reality just got flipped upside down. I tell him if he needs the set point lower than 72, he needs to email the energy manager and request an exemption. The mechanics fix the problem with the reheat coil, and both rooms are maintaining 72 degrees. After lunch, I check my phone for any new work orders. There's one for that same room. I open it up and the professor had wrote in the description of the problem, room needs to be 68 due to sensitive and expensive equipment. The previous technician did not fix the problem. I closed the ticket and put in the notes, please email the energy manager to request an exemption like I explained earlier, ticket complete. So although I legitimately 100% believe that it does have to be maintained to 68, nobody followed the due process to make sure that this was in the notes, was ever organized properly. Like, what does anybody in this situation expect? I mean, it's no surprise, all throughout my life while going to school, I've always heard that some regulation company in a whole different state controls what temperature the entire school is set to. And there would be like thermostats in separate classes, but it wouldn't actually affect the temperature in the actual room. It was like a dummy thermostat. So whatever lab building this is, it's really weird that they didn't preemptively have some kind of explanation or process to make sure that these labs get controlled to what they need to be. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is no data on personal laptops. I was an IT contractor working for a very large consultancy, let's call them Mech Tinder, on a client side, we'll call them 4, as part of their telephony data warehouse implementation team. I arrive on day 1 and was immediately shrugged off by the project manager. This guy had spent a lot of time schmoozing me, and to receive a cold shoulder when I arrived showed what kind of outfit this was. I should have known. I had encountered them in previous projects, but never direct. I digress. A colleague more senior took me to complete a training session. It consisted of a 10-minute PowerPoint on security, a 10-minute crash course on the project, and a 2-hour knowledge transfer on my deliverables. Being somewhat professional, I'd brought my personal laptop to handle the first few days, knowing that IT in these organizations can be a little slow. The first slide said, no personal devices may be used to hold or process client data. Fine, not a problem. I could work on the client SharePoint, just using the laptop for access, until mine arrived. My personal credentials were given permissions to access the working directories. Fast forward 5 months and 3 weeks, I'm about to exit the project. The project manager from Mech Tinder calls me aside and hands me the most beaten up pile of crap laptop I've ever seen. Here's your laptop, sorry it's late, you need to work from this from now on. This thing had maybe 9 keys attached and sounded like a Rolls-Royce Trent engine on takeoff. It was useless. I booted up the pile of junk I had been handed and no access to the documents I'd created. I asked the project manager again. No, he said, no personal devices. Consider yourself lucky. Not everyone gets a laptop this nice. So I sat there for 2 more weeks waiting for the IT team to give me editor access to the documents I'd spent 6 months putting together. After I left, I deleted any local copies from my personal device and deleted the user IDs from my own domain. I was told by a colleague in 4's project team that MechTinder's IT team had managed to delete the docs and tried to reach out to get local copies. By then, I'd handed the junk laptop back, and remember, no personal devices. Honestly, what sucks is, despite this company being so terrible to work with and doing things in such a terrible fashion, they're still so big that despite this, they're just gonna roll on like nothing even happened. They're probably gonna keep rolling through projects awfully like this, and I mean, they're just big enough that they can tank it, I guess. Our next story is from Leeds DS. Supervisor wants me to have a buy-off on every first part. I'm a machinist in a CNC aerospace shop. I've been here for 4 years, never worked a different shop, and everything I know is learned from this shop. The machines I run are multi-pallet machines that can hold over 20 parts each and is completely automated with the exception of the loading and unloading of parts and tooling. One machine holds over 300 tools and the other almost 200 tools. A few years ago, when I was taught how these machines run and essentially made into the primary operator for these machines, I was told to have every first part bought off on each order that runs, even if the next order was the same part as the previous order. My supervisor was really cool to me and I enjoyed working with him. This buy-off policy started because someone kept running parts and not checking them properly and scrapped thousands of dollars in parts. For about a month straight, people were getting write-ups for not having buy-offs done. To save myself the hassle, I decided I would be extremely meticulous about making sure my parts were bought off properly every time. I would end up with 3 to 5 orders of parts running back to back, and I would run first part from each order, take 5 different parts to my lead, and have them go through the 15 to 20 minute process of buying them off, and would not run the machines until the parts were fully bought off. I caused dozens of hours of downtime on the machines during this month because sometimes there wasn't an available lead to check my parts, even though I checked them myself very thoroughly after they were finished. After a month of lost time and profits due to expediting the parts for processing and shipping, the owner called me in for a meeting and asked why my machines weren't running all the time. I told him lead supervisor wants a buy-off on every order that runs. So until the parts are bought off, I don't run the machines. After that meeting, the policy changed to checking parts and keeping running at the discretion of the operator, and only needing buy-offs if something measured wrong or it was a new part we've reprogrammed, never made before, or haven't ran in a while. Bottom line, I think OP did everything absolutely correctly here. When you're facing the reality of being held potentially liable for ruining thousands of dollars of product, despite the fact that their process they're explaining to you is going to hold up way too much work, in that situation, you definitely want to cover your own butt. If you have to go drop in on a half pipe, look out for yourself and don't let anybody shame you for putting on elbow pads and a helmet. AKA, protect yourself, cover your own butt. And our final story of the day is from Odd Sense of Humor. Sign in, even though I've worked here for 12 years? You got it. So my malicious compliance started about a month ago at my workplace, where I've been for the past 12 years. On the fateful day, I'd forgotten my key fob to buzz through the security gate, so I asked the guard, who I've known and chatted to for several years, to let me through. As he was getting up, the moody older guard, some of my staff named him Nasty Nick for good reason, next to him stopped him and rudely told me to sign in. I explained that I've been working here for over a decade and I'm known to this guard so he can vouch for me. He said that doesn't matter, it's a health and safety thing in case there was a fire. Not true, there's a shared building and each company is responsible for accounting for their staff. I know because I helped set up this plan with the building's owner. I explained this to him, but he wasn't having it and directed me to the sign-in book, which, funnily enough, had a printed sheet which stated it was for guests only, and had a line saying permanent staff should get a sticker to ID themselves. When I asked about the sticker, he said this was the new process and I had to sign in and out each time I entered and exited the building without my fob. I asked if he was sure. He said 100%. Cue malicious compliance. The UK health and safety body says that ideally you should take a 5 to 10 minute break each hour away from your computer screen. Not wanting to get RSI or anything, I took it upon myself to take even more regular breaks, especially when Nasty Nick was on shift. So for my break, I would go on short walks outside, and wouldn't you know it, I am getting very forgetful in my old age and keep forgetting to bring in my fob. So each time I come to sign in, Nasty Nick would need to get up, open his door, undo his keys to buzz me in. Quite often, I would forget something in my car just as he's about to let me in, and he'll need to make his round trip back to the little office. My record was 13 little breaks over the day. After about 2 weeks of this, I managed to have a catch up with the younger guard, and he explained that he checked, and there was definitely not a need for me to sign in each time. And even better, Nasty Nick was constantly moaning about me to the other security guys about the idiot who keeps forgetting his fob. It's really funny because this dude is clearly not getting it. This guy is going around complaining, "Oh, this idiot keeps forgetting his fob." Do they not realize that they're the idiot for not realizing OP is doing it intentionally to them? I guess they're just not getting paid to think about that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out the video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.